Alright, so now we're going to take another look at classes and objects, getting into chapter 8 here. So with this one, what we're going to be looking at is some of the more advanced topics dealing with object-oriented programming. So this is going to include things like the this reference or the this keyword, the static keyword, dealing with static members, some additional methods we can use with our classes, which include things like the toString method, an equals method, a copy method. We'll also be looking at things like aggregation, so we'll see what that is and how that relates to classes and objects. We'll also look at generics, enumerated data types, and then also garbage collection. So a couple of different topics that we're going to go through in this chapter. So to start off with, we're going to take a look at the this keyword or the this reference variable. The this reference variable, so that means that we're going to use the literal word this in our program. This is going to be a variable that allows an object to reference or to refer to itself. Imagine replacing the reference variable for an object with the word this. So like if we were dealing with, say, a rectangle class, we would make a variable just called rect. So that rect reference variable, we could replace that with the word this to say that the object is referencing itself. Typically, you will only ever see this being used inside of your custom classes. So we'll take a look at our rectangle demo project. We'll look at the rectangle class inside of that and see some things we can do to modify it to actually incorporate the this keyword into it. So in this example, if rectangle objects need to access their own length field, something similar to the following would be included in the rectangle class. So we've got this.length. Or if rectangle objects need to call their own getLength method, something similar to the following would be included in the rectangle class. So we'd have something like this.getLength. Generally, the reason that we're going to see this inside of our programs is to eliminate variable shadowing. The scope of local and global variables can be distinguished with the use of this. So if you see this dot and then a variable name, then that's going to tell you that that variable is actually referring to a field of the class. Whereas if you don't see the word this, that's going to indicate specifically in our methods that it's referring to one of the parameters that you passed into that method. So in this example we have right here, we've got a constructor method where we have this.symbol refers to the symbol field of a stock object, while just symbol by itself refers to the parameter variable. The same is also going to be true for this.sharePrice and sharePrice. So you can see in this example that I have right here, specifically when we get into the constructor, so we've got our public stock and then that pair of parentheses, and inside of those we've got our string for a symbol and then our double for a share price. You'll notice that the names of the parameters are exactly the same as the names of the fields. So if we're not careful, then this would result in variable shadowing, where then within that constructor method, every time we use symbol or share price, it would think that we're talking about the parameter and it wouldn't understand that we mean the field. So to fix this, when we get into the body of this constructor, we're going to do this.symbol equals symbol. So this.symbol means the field, symbol by itself means the parameter. And then for the next line, this.sharePrice means the field, and then sharePrice by itself means the parameter. So we can go ahead and do the same thing to our rectangle class. So if we go ahead and minimize this, we'll come back over to NetBeans. I have the rectangle demo open and ready to go. So right here in a rectangle class, if we take a look at the constructor or the setters as well, we'll recall that we had these parameters here. So I did something like len and wid, basically just making sure that the names of these parameters were not the same as the names of the fields to avoid variable shadowing. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just change this now. So this len right here, I'm going to change it to length, and this wid, I'm going to change to width. And then inside of the body of this constructor, I'm going to specify that this is meant to be the field by just saying this.length. And then I'm going to say that this is meant to be the width field by saying this.width. And then right here, we can just go ahead and change these to match the names we gave them right there. And so now we can just go ahead and just use the exact same names for our parameters and our fields. We just have to make sure that we use the this keyword to distinguish between one or the other. And you can also see that color coding that I had mentioned before, kind of a helpful indicator that we're dealing with a field. you'll notice that when you include the this keyword, the length that comes right after it is going to be in green, so it's color coding it to indicate that it's a field, whereas the length right here is not color coded. It's still just that default black, which indicates that it's going to be the parameter. Additionally, we can go ahead and do that with our set length and set width. So right here, we've got our double, change this to double length. We'll say that we want this to be this dot length, and we want this to be just length, so it indicates the parameter. And then with our width, let's go ahead and change this to say double width. Say this is this dot width, and then we'll also change this to match, so that this is the parameter. I'll go ahead and save that. Additionally, we can use the this reference variable to call one constructor from another constructor. So through method overloading, the proper constructor to call can be determined. So it's just like if we were to call the constructor from our main method, depending on the parameters that we pass in, through method overloading, it can determine precisely which constructor we mean to call. In this particular example, the second stock constructor, so the one at the bottom, is going to include a call to the first stock constructor. It's very clear that this is calling the first stock constructor because of the fact that it has two parameters, a string and our double, in this case 0.0. So this is a pretty useful way to set up another type of parameterized constructor where just one of the items is being set while the other is not. So maybe if we wanted to, because of the fact that we've got our length and width for our rectangle constructor, maybe if we wanted to, we could go ahead and include another one where our rectangle could be constructed as if we were making a square. And so the way that that would work is we can just go ahead and add another constructor here. So we'll go ahead and say public rectangle, and we'll say something like double, let's call it side in this particular case. And right here, what we can go ahead and do is just use this in a pair of parentheses. So this indicates that we're going to call the constructor. So right now, if you notice based on the highlighting that it's doing, because I did this but didn't put any arguments in, it's highlighting this rectangle constructor up here, which is the noargs one. So it thinks that I want to call that one. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just put side in twice for a length and a width. So do side, comma side, just like that. And so now, if I go ahead and check it right here by placing my cursor next to this, it's going to mark this one. It's going to highlight the parameterized constructor, thinking that I want to call this, and this is actually my intent now. So essentially what this will do is just set the length and width to the exact same value, whatever side is that we passed in. So basically it'll treat it as if we were constructing a square specifically. So a little bit later, when we talk about being able to create copies of our objects, we'll come back to this idea of using the this keyword as a way to reference one constructor inside of another. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave it at this with the this keyword. In the next video, we'll go ahead and take a look at another keyword that we can use in our classes, which is going to be the static keyword.